Hey guys, it's the Captain here, and
Neville Marten.
Neville Marten. Look, Neville and I have known each other for a few years. Neville has worked in and around guitars all your life, really, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I noticed that Neville's band were playing at a gig in Guildford tonight.
G Live.
So I thought, pop in for
here I am.
10 minutes before you leap on stage. So I guess most people will know you from your association with Guitarist Magazine and the other titles around Guitarist Magazine. But take us back a bit before then. What was your introduction into the guitar world?
My introduction was, like a lot of people of my age, which is, I'm a 60s kind of kid really, was the Beatles. You know, I saw the Beatles on stage and I saw them looking really kind of serious, especially George looked serious about what he was doing, and it's like, he's the one who's not bobbing his head around. He's taking this seriously, he's looking at the guitar. So I kind of liked that. And I wasn't quite so knocked out by the Shadows. I loved the Shadows, but I was a little bit too young to get the bug.
Yeah.
But the Beatles gave me the bug. And also I've said this before, but I liked the ordinary looking normal guitars that the Beatles used, like the Gretches, and I didn't know there were Gretches and Rickenbackers, but I liked them because they looked conventional. The Shads had these, you know, in this colour.
Oh, I see,
and
like a throwback to the sort of
I
more
like the kind of
Gibson-y thing.
Ordinary, so it was that really, and I got into the Beatles, and Beatles got me into chords, and I liked chords, and then it was Clapton and Hendrix, and you know, people of my era so lucky compared to younger people, because I was there the first time Cream was played on the radio, the first time Hendrix was on telly. I saw the first performance of Hendrix on telly, and you know, the Who came out when I was a kid, and all of that stuff, and it was an amazing time. So I was immersed in music as a kid, and my mother was a musician, and so that was my introduction to it, and I loved guitars. And I started to get to know about guitars because I was interested in them. I remember going to school one day, and I said the Mindbenders had been on the night before, which kind of half became 10cc. And Eric Stewart was playing. I said, "Did you see the guy in the Mindbenders last night playing a homemade guitar?" And somebody said, "You idiot, that was a Fender Telecaster." You know, because I thought it looked homemade. And so, you know, you learn about stuff, and I ended up learning about guitars, and I used to set my own guitars up. And I was lucky when I was in my early 20s. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, and I worked, and I had quite a good job. Weirdly, I worked with Guthrie Govan's dad in a cardboard factory in Chelmsford. Guthrie's dad, Jock.
What are the chances?
I know. And Guthrie and I went to the same school actually, although he's much brighter than I was, and quite a few years younger, I have to say on his behalf. So I bought guitars, and when I was 20 I went down to London. I bought my first Telecaster, then I bought my first white Strat, which was probably a 59, and then I bought my first 335, and I bought my Les Paul, and by the time I was 24 I had proper guitars.
And this was for a band that you were in at the time?
No, I wasn't in a band. I played at home.
Oh, you were an early kind of, because I certainly know, you know, when my dad and, you know, and granddad, God bless his soul, talk about Andertons in the 60s, there wasn't really a sense that anybody was just playing for fun. You know, it was like everybody was, the customers all seemed to be being professional about it, you know. I was professional in my head. Right. I sit at home and I was deadly earnest. You know, I learnt every lick. I mean, I could play, I couldn't now, but back then I could play the whole of Wheels of Fire by Cream. I could play the whole of the 11-minute version of Crossroads, followed by the 9-minute version of, the 11-minute version of what's it called? Anyway. A famous Cream song. The two tracks on one side. Right. Spoonful. Right. The Spoonful and Crossroads, and I could play every note. I'd literally spend every hour, every day playing along, and I played when the Hendrix came out. Didn't really like the Hendrix albums as much. Okay. Because I didn't like the tone. I liked the Clapton dark, SG, Les Paul kind of sound. And it was only when I heard Hendrix live that I thought, oh, this guy can really make a guitar. What did that feel like? Because I mean, that's, you know, without wanting to sound, you know, sort of condescending to anybody who wasn't around to see this music revolution happening in the 60s, or it started in the 50s and sort of, but really I think erupted in the 60s, isn't it? What did it feel like when all of a sudden this guy Jimi Hendrix kind of just goes boom?
I was at home and my father was about to go out. He used to go out every night, and his euphemism for going down the pub all night was, "I'm going to park the car."
Right.
And my father, Top of the Pops or something was on television, and my father said, "I'm just going to go and park the car, dear." And he walked to the door, and then they said something like, "And here he is, the wild man of pop." And Hendrix came on with a white Strat and did Hey Joe, and my father stood at the door, looked with his jaw on the floor, and watched the whole thing, then said something derogatory and went to the pub. But I was like, I've never seen or heard anything like this in my life. And then, of course, the singles started to come out. Hey Joe came out first, then Purple Haze and Wind Cries Mary and things like that. And there's never been anything like this before or since. And obviously we know the effect that it had on, if you like, the guys who were number 1, 2 and 3 at the time. They became 2, 3 and 4.
Yes.
Simple.
Yeah.
But I still loved the darker tone.
Yeah.
I remember when Led Zeppelin came out. All of a sudden there's this new band called Led Zeppelin, and of course that's a strange thing. But they came on the John Peel show or something, and they played Communication Breakdown. I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. And Jimmy was playing stuff I'd never heard Eric or Hendrix play. So there's another side to it all, and it was so exciting. It was so exciting.
Did you manage to see any of them live?
My trouble was, at the time I lived in Northumberland.
Right.
And the nearest place.
I don't remember Hendrix having that famous Northumberland gig.
He did. He played at Newcastle. My sister saw him in Newcastle, along with, I think that was the famous Engelbert Monkeys Hendrix tour. The kind of
that was a tour, was it?
Yeah.
Oh,
very famous tour.
Was that kind of where presumably Hendrix wouldn't have been headlining that then? He'd have been.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it might. I don't know. I mean, historically, I'm not sure if this is accurate, but it could have been one of those things where he started off at the bottom and ended up at the top.
Yeah.
But I didn't see them all. I didn't see them. But Cream, I think, came to the City Hall in Newcastle. But no, I didn't see the Beatles. Didn't see any of them. I didn't start seeing bands till I moved back down south. My father worked up there for Marconi, and so we didn't really. It was so far. We were halfway between Newcastle and Scotland, so it was really out in the sticks. So and I was too young really to go. Anyway.
But you were there though, at least.
I heard it on the radio, and we got the albums. And I was so lucky because my sister went out with this guy. He was a really lovely guy, and he had bought the Beano album when it came out. And then she started going out with him, and he said, "You've got to listen to this. This is the most amazing." Then within her going out with him and a few months, Hard Road, the follow-up, came out with Peter Green on guitar. Yeah. So I heard the Beano album and Hard Road with Greenie on when they came out, and that was absolutely staggering. And I'd hear this guitar playing, and I played guitar then, and I'd hear guitar and I was thinking, that is impossible to do. Literally, that's impossible to do.
Although, because I always think, when although Hendrix and Clapton, kind of absolutely, they steal all the limelight. When you think, technically speaking, you look at people like Scotty Moore and stuff like that, Chet Atkins and all that kind of stuff, they were on another level again, but just not playing...
Exactly, and
with distortion, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. And Chuck Berry, and if you listen to the original Johnny B. Good now, it's really great. I mean, Chuck's on fire, and that was years before any of these guys. And he was playing through, he was playing through little Fender amplifier, distorted, and so he had distortion, and we credit all my era guys with inventing that, but they didn't. It was there. Yeah. Way in advance. And then of course you get to hear B.B. King, get to hear Freddie King. Albert King was my one. When I heard Albert King, I couldn't believe how amazing and authentic it was. It was like, this was, Clapton was great, but this is the real deal, absolutely the real deal. And that happened to all of us. Yeah. When it happens to Oasis fans, they suddenly discover the Beatles and think, oh, actually, these are the real one, but et cetera, et cetera.
And so when did you, at what point did you start to realise that, perhaps a career in journalism was it doesn't sound like you, cardboard factory to journalism. You wouldn't sort of put that.
No, it's not a natural progression, is it? What happened was I used to set my own guitars up, and I had a 335 and a Les Paul Custom and a Strat at the time, and I'd set my guitars up because I was interested in it.
Yeah.
I always got interested in the geometry of how a guitar works, bridge, truss rod, nut and everything. And my friends who also played the guitar used to say, why do your guitars play much better than mine? And I'd set their guitar up. So I ended up getting a job as a guitar repairer at Gibson, because I lived at that time in Braintree in Essex.
Oh, okay.
And Braintree was Woolpack Lane, Gibson, that's where Gibson's headquarter was.
Yeah.
I bluffed my way into a job.
Right.
I took a guitar I was building, and I took a guitar that my mate had built, and I said, I built this one and I'm building this one. They gave me a job. And so I started working there as a guitar repairer. Subsequently I worked for Fender's UK operation as their guitar repairer.
Yeah.
And then guitarists started.
Yeah.
And a guy who worked at Fender on the telesales went to work as sales guy on guitarist. And in the early days, the writing wasn't great and the knowledge wasn't great on the Mac. And this guy used to say, look, I know a guy who knows about guitars.
Yeah.
He can play a bit and he can kind of speak a reasonable sentence with the following wind, Why don't you get him to do a review? And one day a reviewer couldn't do something and he said, there's this guy. And that's how I did it. My first review was a BC Rich Mockingbird.
Well, of course. That's exactly the guitar I would have suggested.
And it's kind of started from there. Then, and I was still working at Fender. And
how many marks out of 10 did you give the BC Rich?
Probably 11.
11.
Yeah.
Good man. Yeah.
But then Hank Marvin came down to try some guitars, and Gilmore came down to try some guitars. So I kind of tout for interviews and stuff. So I ended up getting in via that kind of back door. And this is what,
early 80s sort of time? Or?
Yeah, early 80s. But a weird thing, I remember guitarists plopping on my desk, because I used to get it in the Fender workshop. And I'd just done a bit of work on a white Strat for Gary Moore. And they popped guitarist on the desk, and Gary, playing the Strat I worked on, landed on my desk. And I thought, wow, And obviously I didn't know him at that time, but it was an amazing moment.
And then you. So how many years were you a writer before you became? You presumably were deputy editor and then editor? And
I started as it was really weird. I started as staff writer, I think, lowest of the low, and I got on all right. And I worked there for 6 months, and then Syntax began. Remember the weird guitar?
Do you know? I just as an aside here, the reason I Facebook liked you recently is entirely because I don't even know how I found the Syntax video, and I'm looking at this person going, I bloody know who that is, but I can't place the face at the moment like that. And I'm watching it and I've gone, it's bloody Neville Marten like that, And it's like, I'm going to put a link to that video.
Okay.
It's the funniest. It's not funny because
it is. I mean,
it's not intentionally funny, is it?
Well, no, I mean, I'll digress into the Syntax thing now and then go back to what happened. Well, Syntax kind of poached me, if you like. I don't want to be too grandiose about it, but they kind of came and poached me. And I worked for them for a while. And if anybody doesn't know, the Syntax it wasn't a guitar synth, it was a synthesizer controller. It had no sounds, but you'd have this rack of Oberheim and Yamaha synths behind you, and you plug in via MIDI, and all the guitar actions that you did would translate through the keyboards. It was a brilliant piece of design, but destined to failure because it cost $9,000.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it was very Alan Holdsworth, wasn't it?
Exactly. But Syntax ended up being owned by Virgin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Branson bought the company, and they wanted to do
shrewd business decisions.
They wanted to do a video, so they got Virgin Video in.
Yeah.
So I had some hair then, some anyway, and so I had this coiffure. She made me up, did all of the thing like that, and makeup and all the rest of it.
Fabulous outfit on as well.
Yeah. And they said right, you've got to be serious about this. So I wasn't allowed to smile.
Right.
So I went, hello, I am Neville Marten. Coiffured, stiff as you like, and playing quite badly on this amazing machine. But that was how that happened. And anyway, after that, I didn't like the job. It wasn't me. It was a phenomenal thing, but it wasn't me. So the job as editor guitarist came up, and I applied for it, and I got it.
Oh, fantastic!
And that was '86. So on and off, I've worked for Guitarist. I kind of helped to launch Guitar Techniques.
Yeah.
I think I've been editor of Guitarist 3 times and Guitar Techniques 3 times. So that's kind of what I've done for most of my life.
And currently editor of Guitar Techniques.
Currently editor of Guitar Techniques, but I write reviews for Guitarist, and I did my blues column in Guitarist for years.
Of course, yes.
Which I recently I realised the bottom of the barrel was. I was so far through the bottom of it that I said I don't really think I should do it anymore. So I gave it to Richard Barrett.
Obviously, he's just
stunning.
Guy, isn't he?
Yes. I suggested to Jamie that Richard would be ideal, and he's such a great player.
But they're a lovely bunch. I mean, lots of people that I've ended up working with a bit. Mick Taylor, obviously, particularly, but Jamie Dixon, or it's just they're a lovely bunch down there, aren't they? So
they really are. Mick's a good friend of mine. I mean, he's been very busy lately with the pedal show.
He's your prodigy, really, isn't he?
I would never say that. When Mick came to work with me when he was 20, 21, and you could see clearly straight away that he had it.
Yes.
He knew, he understood, he saw the bigger picture, not the tiny picture.
Yeah.
He could play great guitar.
Yeah.
And all I did was facilitate his rise through the ranks, really. I don't think I had much to do with it, other than said, Mick's great, give him a rise. But they are great. They're all great people.
They are lovely. But look, so musically then, alongside this, long career with Future Publishing, you have been the guitar player for another icon of the 60s.
Yeah, and even before, I played with a guy called Marty Wilde, who we used to, when I first joined Marty, I used to say, because people hadn't really heard of him, because it was the 80s. Mm-hmm. He was totally out of
Kim's dad.
Kim's dad. Because now people sometimes
they
don't
probably won't know who Kim is.
If they're young, they don't.
Absolutely.
But Marty was a big name he had 17 top 20 hits.
Yeah.
A big artist. One of the formative rock and roll singers in the UK.
Yeah.
I mean, he was great. One of the first guys, along with Hank and Bruce and the Shadows, to write their own songs. He wrote songs. He wrote many hits for other people. Weirdly, Status Quo have got a new single out called "Like Ice in the Sun," which Marty wrote for them in the 60s.
Of course.
So it goes kind of round and round and round. And I've been with Marty 30 plus years. It's such a good gig.
Yeah.
It's not musically the end of the world, of course, because it's rock and roll and stuff, but it's a great gig to have. I thoroughly enjoy it. He's a great boss. Our keyboard player is Nick Leonard, who plays keyboards in The Fellowship with Guthrie Govan.
Oh, you're kidding.
And our drummer is Neil Robinson, who was in James Taylor Quartet for 12 years. So proper guys,
CDs.
Eddie Allen, who on guitar.
The bass player's ropey though, isn't he?
The bass player's ropey. Actually, he's sitting out there.
Hello.
Roger was on all of Rick Wakeman's mega platinum albums in the 70s. King Arthur, and Roger did King Arthur on Ice, the most famous, ludicrous
prog thing
ever. So it's a band of decent guys.
Yeah, it is.
And
you obviously will get on, don't you? No, but it's. I mean, you've got to all get on, haven't you, to have to spend that long together.
Roger and I have been in the band. Roger and Eddie and I have been in the band for around 30 years. And we smile on stage because we're mates and we like each other.
Nothing wrong with that, is there? So come on, let's take us through you've bought a couple of guitars with you today.
I have,
that are obviously favourites.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about. Might as well start with the red Strat.
Well, I've literally written a little tiny piece in Guitarist this month about this, but I can say exactly the same. I had, how it is with things. You see something, or you see a few things, and you think, oh yeah, I've forgotten about that. And I saw a picture of Andy Summers with exactly this.
Yeah.
Saw a picture of Mike Landau, exactly this.
Yeah.
And I watched the Gary Moore amazing Red House at the Fender 50th anniversary Strat thing.
Yeah.
Playing this. And somebody else I can't remember. And I thought, and also the very first Strat I ever played was up in Northumberland, and it was this, exactly the same as this. So I thought, that's the perfect guitar of all time, isn't it? So I phoned up Fender and I said, can I order myself a Strat?
Yeah.
And so I said, I want it the faded Fiesta, I want it pinky, not orangey.
Yeah.
So they did that. I said, I want a kind of light red job on it. I want a nice green guard. I want fat 60s pickups. I want the treble, the tone control on the bridge pickup. I want the darkest rosewood board possible, mega frets. I don't know why I said that, but they are big. I think they're 6110s. I think they're just a bit bigger than the normal one. 9.5 radius. Normal. I didn't ask for a figure. I said, can you not have huge volute on the end? And they mostly took it off, but I still would have preferred a bit. Because on the old ones, they didn't have any of that. They just went straight into the... Anyway, that's just my personal thing. I've taken that off. I don't know why. People do, so I did.
Easier to restring and maintain.
Exactly. And that's it. And
you've not gone for the sort of the relic neck, have you? Which has always been a bit of a... I love that kind of relic neck thing. So.
I do if it's done. Well, I had a 63 Strat for years and years and years. And it had gone naturally. And you can never get it to feel exactly like they do. And I've had a couple where it's all been removed. But I resisted that on this.
Did you opt for a master builder to do that one, or is this
no? I didn't. I just said I don't. I just want a Strat, a nice Strat. To be honestly, it was as much to do with its looks as anything. And I've always said, because of my history of working on guitars, if it looks right, you can do anything else with it. You can make the neck better. You can refret it. You can put better pickups in it. You can beef it up to the spec that it's going to play and sound great. But if it looks rubbish, it'll always look rubbish.
I ended up watching a documentary on YouTube the other day of a guitar player called Tom DeLonge. I was never a big Blink 182 fan or anything like that, but it was a really nicely shot documentary, and he was a very engaging chap. So I ended up, it's an hour long, and I watched the whole thing. And halfway through, he's got this 335 signature model that he's started to do these sort of blow-torched paint jobs on like that. And he just comes out with the quote, and he said, it's so important for me for my guitars to look good. He says, because after all, being in a rock band is 90% about looking cool. And he said, maybe even 93% looking cool. and you just end up going, let's be honest with you, you know, that's the truth, isn't it? It's like, it's 7% making music and 93% looking cool.
Well, I think I don't know if you have one here, but certainly in guitar centers in the States, they have a huge mirror. So you say, like that guitar, sir? We'd like to put it on. And you look in the mirror and say, oh yeah.
We have mirrors in all of our demo rooms in the store. It's for entirely that reason. But
it's brilliant.
So I like this very much. And to be honest with you, such is, I wasn't sure as well with a man like yourself turning up. I didn't want to sort of go, so it's obviously a relic custom shop model. And I from sitting where I am, I had to go, so is it like genuinely old or not? And it obviously isn't, but not obviously isn't. It isn't old, but it's tough, isn't it? Really,
they did a great job. They do a great job. The relics that you get now some of them are so authentic. It's really quite hard, isn't it, to tell.
Pete, is your Telecaster here, Pete? You'll like this. You might not like the colour. Okay. The colour's a bit Marmite.
Is that the one that was here?
It's just the most fabulous Telecaster. Hold that a minute. I'll hold your...
Oh, yeah, that's phenomenal.
But that's what I meant about...
It goes so perfectly with
doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I meant about the neck. I love where they've really, really worn down the finish. I think it's lovely. Just a super feel.
That's lovely. You know what I would do with this? So when I was a kid living in Northumberland, we lived right on the beach. Yeah. And I was into air guns, and I used to always strip the butts on my air guns. I'd take them off, I'd take them down to the beach, and I'd roll them for about an hour in the sand, in this fine sand, and they would be so smooth. You wouldn't feel any grain whatsoever, it would just gone. So take the neck off, go to the beach. That's gorgeous, that's gorgeous. What colour is that? What colour is that called?
Sparkle purple, I think.
Is it?
It's a custom shop, yeah.
The Guitar Techniques letters page next month will be, I took my neck off and rolled it in the sand and now it's all warped. Yeah. Cheers, Nev.
Don't do that at home, kids. That's gorgeous, Pete, absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, it's Fender are making some great guitars at the moment. They really, I genuinely do. I think some of the luthiers that they've got there have so captured everything that was magical.
They have.
In the old days. Okay, so that's. Are you using that on the Marty Wilde? I'm using this
as soon as I got it. It became my gigging guitar.
Your go-to number one guitar.
Because it looks. What better guitar really could you have for that era music?
Well, of course.
And the fans love it. Anybody in the audience who likes that era music, they will love the Shads. We do a Shadows number, well, not a Shadows number, Jet Harrison, Tony Meehan song, which Jet was the bass player in the Shadows, which actually Roger plays, called Diamonds. And he uses this guitar and goes out the front, and I use a wireless pack on it, a Line 6 G70, which is brilliant. And so he goes out to the front and does all this stuff, and I go boom, boom on the bass. So, which is quite good fun. But no, the fans love it. The fans love the fact that you're playing a pink Strat.
Well, they relate to it. And it's, again, the Fiesta Red is one of those colours that's gone from being the coolest Fender Strat ever to the uncoolest Fender Strat to back again now being possibly, one of the coolest colours that there is in the range.
The thing I always say is, if you say to your grandmother, "Can you draw me electric guitar, Gran?" She'd draw a Strat.
Yep.
And said, "Can you colour it in? Here's a box of paints." It would be red.
Yeah.
So if your gran thinks that the classic guitar is a Strat that's red, then that's true, isn't it?
I wonder when that will change to the, in 2 generations' time, when grans will be drawing BC Rich Mockingbirds. And anyway, let's have a look at the other guitar that you've bought on. So, tell us what you've got here.
This is a 57 True Historic.
Oh wow!
Les Paul Custom.
So that can't be that old then, that one.
No, it's a couple of months. Yeah.
Nice.
My first Les Paul was a black Custom. Before I worked at Gibson in the UK as a repairer, I knew the head of the repair department. His name was Alf Fiddler, and Alf got me one through the employees scheme that they could buy a guitar. So he got it. He probably made a few quid on it. But mine had the fretless Wonder frets, which are tiny, thin, and then they're basically unplayable. It was a black one. It looked great, but it wasn't actually, I have to say, a great guitar. And I sold it after a while. But I've been recently hankering after, kind of not replacing it, because you can't. But I love Les Pauls, and I've talked to you about this before. I've got a real thing about Les Pauls. If the colour's not exactly right, I don't want it. If the flame isn't, or the figuring is not exactly right, I don't want it. There's so many things about Les Pauls that if they're not 100% right for you, and you would walk in and your Les Paul, thankfully, is different to my Les Paul.
Yeah.
And you both go for a different thing. You're probably the same. So I thought, I was actually in. Can I say another shop's name?
Of course you can.
I was in World Guitars.
That'll get beeped out, obviously.
Of course, yeah. The funny thing was, though, I had a 56 gold top P90 relic, heavy relic, and I'd been to Cheltenham and I was driving back down the M5, and I thought, I'll call in and see Mark at World Guitars. I called in, and my gold top was in the boot of my car. And I got there and we were talking, and one of the guys who works in there, Jules, said, "Have you tried the new 57 Historic? It's phenomenal. We had 2 in. I had to buy one. There's another one. Try it. Go and try it." I thought, I can't be bothered. He said, "Oh, go and try it. Go ahead." So I went in their demo room where they have a Matchless is their main demo thing. Plugged in. It was incredible. And this guy was standing there, and he said, "That sounds good. It sounds good." He said, "But I really want a 56 gold top, but I can't find one." I said, "I got one in the boot," as it happens. So anyway, we did a deal, and Mark let me do the deal. So I got this. But the weird thing was, I mean, it's a great guitar, and you know as well as I do, Gibson pickups are brilliant. The these are custom
buckers, aren't they?
And they're brilliant pickups. But I'm friends with Tim Mills of Bare Knuckle, and this is an all mahogany Les Paul. It's not no maple cap, no maple cap. So I just probably had a couple of glasses of wine one night, so I texted Tim and said, out of interest, do you favour a certain type of pickup for an all mahogany guitar over one with a maple cap? Without any hint of I'm going to replace the pickups, it was a question. And he said, actually I do. and I prefer our so and so and so and so's in it. And I said, that's really interesting. That I might buy a set off the site. He said, well, don't do that yet. So a week later, I thought, I'm going to get what set. I said, I texted him and said, I'm going to get a set. They said, no, he said, yours are nearly finished. So, long story short, he sent me this set of pickups, and this is a set he's been working on. This isn't a production set. It's a set he's been working on that hopefully will be. I don't want to put words into his mouth, but that's what he said to me. So they're slightly lower output.
Yeah.
They're not mega output.
Yeah.
And they're kind of designed so they work well with a normal mahogany guitar. I said to him, I don't know whether to have the covers on or off.
Yeah.
So when you send them, can you have the covers off? So I'll put them on if I want.
Yeah.
And I put a little straw poll on my Facebook page. I said, on or off? It was about 50-50.
Yeah.
And I think on a black custom, they look meaner.
Yeah, you see, I would go on, I
Would
think.
you?
Yeah, only because I don't know what it is about it. For me, the kind of taking the pickup covers off became like a 70s thing.
Yeah.
And it to me, that looks like a 1970s Les Paul Custom. Yeah. And I think the gold hardware on it, it's just something about it. But I mean, I'm really interested. I'd love to compare, because this is my 58,
yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
And the custom bucker thing is, just in case anybody's wondering, is like a coverall word that Gibson give to their pickups that are wound to be appropriate for the guitar they're building.
Yeah.
So you can't just buy a set of custom buckers because it doesn't really mean anything. It's, if you look on all the collector's choice models, it'll just say custom bucker because they've wound it to be as close to whatever the guitar was. So I don't really know what these are, but they are lower output. I agree with it. They sound great.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested to sort of.
Well, it's interesting. It's really interesting. I put them in, and it's hard to say what the difference is. I did another thing as well, which would also help contribute. But I'll tell that in a second. But when I worked at Gibson, we had a book, and it had all the outputs of all the pickups. Mm-hmm. And the Les Paul Standard was the lowest output, and everybody thought the Les Paul Clapton, Jimmy Page had to be the most powerful, and they were the weakest. But no, you're right. You watch any of those 70s Top of the Popses or Whistle Test, it's black Les Paul Custom or white Les Paul Custom, and very often with the covers off.
Yeah.
But I do think they look meaner. But I have the option to put them on because I have them in a drawer at home.
Well, let's do a little tone test. Go on, give it a strum, and then maybe. Okay. We'll hear. Maybe we'll plug this one in as well. Do the same with. I know this is going to be awkward to change round.
That's all right. I bet it won't sound any different at all.
It does sound different, but we've probably talked too much in between.
Yeah, I can't say what the difference would be. This might be a bit darker.
Yeah,
that might be a bit brighter. Which is what you'd expect from a standard over a...
Yeah.
And that's the maple top, isn't it? So...
It's tighter sounding, your one,
I think it is. I think that's the mahogany top.
Right.
I think it's that. But these are slightly... I mean, I talk about this with guitarist reviews editor Dave Bullock all the time. You know, there's so many preconceptions, but the preconception here is that's a brighter, slightly more dynamic thing. Yeah. This is a darker because it doesn't have the maple. And that possibly bears that out.
Preconceptions are one of those things that have become a pet hate of mine, because I've realised through playing thousands of guitars, much as you have, that in isolation, a certain type of humbucker or a certain wood combination or a certain anything, in isolation, it's very dangerous to form a preconception about that, because it changes when you then add in all the other ingredients that go to a guitar, and a fretboard material that you might not have liked on one guitar, you might really like on another guitar, and so it's dangerous, I think, to have that preconception. Go, I don't like rosewood or
exactly. Well, this is an ebony board as well, so there's going to be a slight difference there. But people think I'll stick a humbucker in the bridge of my Strat.
Yeah.
Well, the Strat's the polar opposite in construction to a Les Paul. bolt-on neck or screwed-on neck, as opposed to set neck, blah, 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 you know.
Yeah.
Maple, all the rest of it. So it'll never sound the same. It'll push you more into that kind of fatter realm, but it's not the same.
Does that get an outing with Marty Wilde? Or?
I used it I think twice, but the Strat does a better job for the gig.
More appropriate for that.
And
kind
Eddie
of music.
uses a Les Paul anyway,
Okay.
so the Strat Les Paul combo is actually very nice, because where he's fatter, I'm a bit a bit more.
Now, I'm sure we could talk about all the other guitars that have kind of gone through your hands, but is there a one that got away? Is there a one that got away story?
In hindsight,
not the gold top, is it?
No.
Thank goodness
In
for that.
hindsight, my first Strat, and I've
Yeah.
said this before, but I'll say it again, was almost certainly ex-Hendrix. Almost certainly. I bought it in 1971, the year after he died. It was advertised in Melody Maker as a white Strat, and they said it was pretty new. And two guys who didn't look like musicians turned up and sold it to me. It was 115 quid.
So
It was the going price at the time. And I could tell it wasn't a new guitar because it had the small headstock.
Smell of lighter fluid. Was that the giveaway?
No, it wasn't. It had a slightly bird's eye maple neck.
Yeah.
And it was white, green guard, phenomenal. I bought it on the spot because I liked it. I went in to the house and started looking more closely at it, and I immediately took it to bits, which I did with all my guitars. And the neck was like a 5960, can't remember now, slab board. The neck plate was a 1967 serial number with an F stamp on it. The body was a 1967 body, and the pickups were another era again. So I had to get Strat button on the lower horn. The nut was loose in its slot. 1971. Who could afford to buy 3 Strats and put one special one together? Mine was the Runt, I think, because it wasn't a great guitar. And who played upside down? Nobody. Meaning there was nobody. And I sold it about 2 years later because it wasn't a great Strat for 115 quid. I thought, I didn't lose a penny. Wow. And and apparently, if you look at the list of Hendrix's guitar, there's one white Strat that they don't know the serial number of that's unaccounted for. And okay, it's easy for me to say, but the evidence is, it's pretty good, I think, pretty compelling.
I would suggest, I don't know, you're going to beat yourself up about that till the end of your days, aren't you? It's just like...
Yeah, I remember the number.
Hopefully someone will post as a comment to this video, there'll be some left-handed guy that bought 3 Strats and said, don't worry, Nev, it was mine.
Please do that, yeah. But I remember the serial number, so if anybody's got it, I won't say it here, but, but I do remember the serial number. And it was white, and it was a Strat, and it was upside down. So in terms of, that could be proved now as it was the missing Strat, then it's worth an absolute fortune. But as a guitar, it's not. I don't know, maybe my first 335,
right?
Which I sold when I got a dot neck 61, and I thought I don't need 2 335s because the dot neck was superior in terms of its.
What was the original?
It was a 67, but it was great, and I bought it, and
guitar.
It was great. I used it for years as my main guitar. That's how the guitar I learned to play live on, as it were. And it was a cherry. I've said Mick Taylor and I have this thing. Mick likes the blonde, long guard, dot neck, blah blah blah. And my 335 is a Clapton 335. That's why I wanted the 335, and Clapton wanted a red 335 because of Freddie King, and because of maybe Chuck Berry. And I think red 335s are blues 335s, sunburst 335s are jazz or pop. That's how it equates in my brain anyway. Possibly that.
I need to change. I don't love my. I've got a red, cherry red 335 standard from.
Have you?
Late 90s, and it's. I don't know. I don't love that guitar, but I did play. I've played a few actually that have come through over the last 18 months or so. The 58, the current 58 Memphis dot, and that one again, sunburst is always the colour that just.
Yeah.
Makes me a bit weak at the knees.
Yeah, but we see maybe your
guitars.
influences are different to mine. I don't know who yours
No,
would be.
actually, no, I don't know why I bought the 335. It wasn't. I think I just bought it because it looked nice.
Well, I decided to kind of replace mine, and I got a 63 reissue in the 50th anniversary. But I tried them. I didn't come here for some reason because I tend to, if I'm somewhere, I'll go into a shop, and I hadn't been in Guildford, so I didn't try any here. But I tried them in, I think in Coda and in Guitar Village, and I finally found one in World Guitars just coincidentally, and it was right. That one was right, and I'm sure you'd do the same.
I think I probably would now. I bought that first one it was a visual thing, you know. It's got a killer flame top on it, which you know. So I think I probably got suckered into that.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know. I need to learn to love my 335. Pete's got a nice 335.
He's got it right now.
Oh, has he? Mick's got it. The incestuous world of Andertons videos.
Yeah, well, I've lent him mine on for that pedal show a few times. He's used that, and in fact, I offered to lend him my matchless because they've never had a matchless on there.
That's true. Well, okay, amps. That's a good lead-in.
Well, there we go. Amps. I was always a Marshall man for obvious reasons, you know, for heritage and all the rest of it. And then, it was in 1980, a friend of mine, he was Sheena Easton's guitarist, great guitar player. He had a friend whose name was Phil, who is one of the Kinks' nephew, both of the Kinks' nephew.
Right.
And he bought 3 boogies from the States, 3 wooden ones, mahogany with wicker fronts. And he wanted to sell one of them, and I think to help pay for the purchase of the others. And this guy said to me, "Are you interested?" So I said yes, I was, because I'd heard of them. And it came to my house, and he wanted 700 quid for it. Now, 700 quid for an amp in 1970, we might as well buy the QE2. You know,
1980.
1980, 700 quid. That was a hell of a lot of money. But I had the cash.
What was it, like an old Mark 1 or something?
Mark II.
Oh, Mark II.
Pre-B. It was a Mark II, not Mark IIB. And I bought it on the spot, and it was phenomenal. I had that for years and years and years. And I don't know if you're like it. I get bored with things. I get bored with the fact that I've got it. I don't get bored with it. And so I outed it to a friend of mine, and I bought a matchless.
Yep.
Having read that big guitar player, that they did a big roundup, and the matchless won
DC30,
the amp of the year,
amp of the decade, or something, wasn't it? Yeah.
So that was me sold, you know. So again, we were playing on one of these tours, and I was down in Torquay, and Manson's was in Exeter. I hope you don't mind me dropping all these.
No, it's fine. Other guitar stores do exist.
Exactly. We're in Andertons, of course, in Guildford. And I just plugged into it. I took my own Les Paul in, which I was using at the time. Just a match made in heaven. It was just brilliant. And so I used that for years and years and years. And about 5 years ago, again, it was heavy, too heavy. And I sold it to a guy called Mark, who's in a band called Lonely the Brave. Okay. Good young modern band, really good guitarist too. And with the proviso that if he ever sold it, could I have first option? But my text goes on my phone about 4 or 5 months ago. "Oh, it's Mark here. I'm buying a 68 Les Paul Custom. I need to sell something. Are you interested in your old matchless back? You can have it for what I paid." So I bought it back. And I've never even plugged it in. No, I have. I used it on a rehearsal for this tour, weirdly. It's in my cupboard at home. Yeah. And it's a brilliant amp, isn't it? You know, it's kind of almost like the ultimate AC30. Really.
That's my recollection of matchless was that the DC30 is still the one. You know, it's just the daddy, isn't it? And I just think that, I don't know if I was going to be even remotely negative, it's almost like the rest of the matchless range, I think, lives off the reputation of the DC30, and you know that's the one to have.
Yeah, I mean that happens, doesn't it? Yeah. You know, it's like, you know, what the guitars Fender have tried to make, the guitars Gibson have tried to make, amps Marshall have tried to make. You know, they don't always. You know, the JT40.
Was the boogie you had? Was that, I vaguely. There was a I think it probably was Mark II, but it was the first time I'd ever seen an amplifier that was, you know, this big, but sounded like a half stack. And the only thing that was awful about it was that you pulled your shoulder out your socket when you actually tried to lift the thing up. But in terms of the air it moved for the size of the amplifier was phenomenal.
I put a 15 inch. 12-inch electro voice in it, which was like
just to add
the
some
thing
weight,
to do,
you know,
the thing
yes.
to do, and it sounded incredible. And honestly, the comments that I used to get at gigs is like people come and say, "Is it a homemade amp?" I said, "No, it's a blah blah blah," because it was mahogany with a wicker front.
Yeah,
because it kind of did look a bit homemade.
Yeah.
And I said, "No, it's not. It's a proper thing." And I didn't use any pedals.
Right.
And I'd used a Boss analog delay and a Boss C2 chorus, but no distortion pedals.
Yeah.
People come up and say, "How do you get the sustain in?" I said, "Well, it's the amp. It's this new kind of thing where you cascade one channel into another, and they kind of, oh, what's that?" And that was it. And it was a great. I remember we used to use a white SG Standard, a '60s one, and
a bit Carlos Santana. This sounds, doesn't it? So.
Yeah. Maybe it was.
Maybe it was.
But that was a great amp. But the matchless, I don't on live now. I'm not using an amp. I'm using a Line 6 Helix.
Well, let's go there, because this is kind of, so you're in a '60s, an authentic '60s rock and roll band. One would expect you to be turning up with some authentic '60s tools, and obviously guitar-wise, you certainly are.
Yeah.
And yet, let's just talk about you've decided to tour with a Helix, a Line 6 Helix, which I suppose I'm going to just have to accept that this is the modern way now, isn't it? So how did that all happen?
We, at the magazines, we were asked if we'd like to go up to Yamaha, that is now owns Line 6, and have a try out on the Helix, because none of us had tried one. We'd heard about it, of course. And basically they had all these stations set up. You've got a Helix, you've got a Helix, you've got a Helix, plug into this full range thing, blah, 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 here's some guitars. And we were just allowed to sit there and program our own sounds, to show how easy it was to do, because some of the others are pretty dense in terms of getting into it. And we all got on really well with them. And the demonstrator, Paul Hindmarsh, is a great player, great demonstrator. And he did a wonderful job showing us the thing, and we set up. I set up my rhythm sound, which is a Fender Deluxe kind of model, and we set up I think JTM 45 and a matchless, and because obviously that's my amp, and it was really, really great. And we all went home. Actually, there's one great thing. The guy from Yamaha, Martin Adam, is a vintage amp collector.
He certainly is.
He's a nut for them.
He's got some proper Marshalls, hasn't he?
Yeah, and so he brought his Plexis in, his 63 AC30, a 50-watt 60s Park,
right,
an original 90s Klon, a Phase 45, original MXR Phase 45. And we'd done this whole thing, and it was about 20 minutes to going home time. I said, "Martin, out of interest, could we plug a guitar into your Klon, into your Marshall, and see if we can get the Helix with its, if you like, models of those sounds or profiles of those sounds anywhere near it?" And there was me, Jason Sidwell, music editor, Stuart Williams of Total Guitar, and David Mead, dep ed of guitarists, all relatively cynical, given our background and everything. And they stuck it in, and it wasn't similar. It was identical, absolutely identical. They even got the sweep of the Phase 90. In fact, that's Phase 90 on the Helix, and it was a Phase 45 that he had. But it was identical. The tone when it swished into that fatter sound, it was identical. And we all went home, and it was like, my God. You look at these big Marshall things, and they did look dinosaurish. I love them, and I still love them. But we all went home, and I got back and I said, I want to get one to try. So they sent me one down. Jason got one as well. Jamie's now got one because of us waxing lyrical about them. And I thought I'd program up the sounds that I would use on this tour, because it happened about a month before the tour. And program them all up. And I thought, shall I try it? I took it out. And we had a Blues Junior as a fail-safe on stage. And 3 gigs, and that's gone. And it's just plugged in. Everybody's saying what a great... Roger comes up to me every night. He sidles up when we're doing a certain song. He says, "Your Strat sounds fantastic." It's not the Strat. The Strat is fantastic, but it's the Helix. And I'm using a JTM 45 for my lead sound with a Timmy pedal
Yep.
in it. Some nice echoes, you know. I've got another one with a bit of compression, and my rhythm sounds are deluxe. It's brilliant sound. And I thought, why not go the whole hog? And I've got a G70 wireless.
Yeah.
And I am wireless man, I'm digital man, you know.
And it's all in-ear monitoring.
It's all in-ear monitoring, so don't need any.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like, you know, as Paul Highmarsh talks about it, you know, if you're playing on stage and one night that happens to be an inch over there or half an inch above, your sound's going to be different.
Yeah.
It's different anyway, room to room.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is the same sound.
I certainly think, you know, we were talking before the camera started of just how many guitar players now who are playing the bigger theatres, you know, that where in-ear monitoring is the way to go.
Yeah.
Just saying, you know, there's really no downside to whatever your, you know, piece of kit is of choice, you know, whether you go Helix or Kemper or Axe FX or Positive Grid or Amplifier or, you know, whatever. There's 4 or 5 very viable options out there. The sound man loves you. The audience doesn't realise.
The front row probably do, because they're not being blasted.
In ear, it makes no. You get the consistent sort of sound, and at the end of the gig, you've got a little thing this big to chuck back in the car, which isn't going to need revalving every so often. I think my only bit is that, again, yesterday the video that we did with Guthrie, where we had. He was using 2 valve amps and like an ABY thing, and loud and with gain, and he did say, sitting in this close proximity to a valve amplifier and just feeling it and just he said that still, it inspires him to play in a way that using a digital modeling thing doesn't do.
That's true. So
he's kind of sitting there, but outside of that, I think it's tough to, you know. I think you said as well that there's still a situation that says little blues club, 50 people in the audience.
I've got my matchless is in the cupboard at home. If I had a pub gig, say you came down and said, no, fancy a blow in the pub, I'd bring the mattress out. I've got a nice little pedal board with my Friedman
Oh, you got
OD,
the
I got
OD,
it from you.
Oh, well done.
Which is on there, and you know, I've got a nice it's a Boss Keeley modded Boss delay, which I love, the DD3, really great. I've got a nice tremolo pedal. I've got I've got a nice little quality-ish pedal board and a nice amp, some nice Evidence Audio leads, and I'm feeling quite posh about myself. And that's part of the thing. If you're playing in a pub or pub or club or something like that, then you want your nice Victory or your behind you, or your Marshall, if that's your thing. And that's all part of it, because part of it, as you said before, part of it is the image.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're Metallica, you probably look a bit daft with some of those things.
I'm fairly sure that is all something, isn't it? Is it all fractal stuff
or
something, or Kemper? I can't remember. But although again, of course, not as far as the audience is concerned, because they'll have the great big stack of Boogie 4x12s or whatever it's going to be, and then behind will be some lonely piece of tech making all the noise. Well, look, it's fantastic to go over some of the gear you've used, and also the context within which it sort of works and stuff like that. Good luck in your gig tonight and for the rest of the tour. I don't think we'll get this edited up in time to sell any more tickets for this evening.
No, I'm sure.
But if you see Marty Wilde, and because there's 3 or 4. It's called
the Solid Gold Rock and Roll Show, and it's Marty Wilde. All these guys had mega hits. Yeah. It's Marty Wilde headlining, Eden Kane, a guy called Mark Winter, and a guy called Mike Berry, and they're all really good acts, and they're really solid acts. Yeah. And our band backs them all. And if you come to see me, I'll be playing my Martin for probably 70% of the night. I'm strummy. I don't care. I'm enjoying the gig. Harmony singing.
Oh, good for you, man.
A few solos.
Well, thank you very much. Long may you continue heading up, the fine publications that you do. But most importantly, playing guitar and all that kind of stuff, and appreciate it a lot coming in today.
Thank you, Lee, and thank you guys. Thank you very much.
There you go. I hope you enjoyed today. You've been watching Andertons TV. Subscribe if you like this kind of stuff, and we shall see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.